Welcome to this week's Cattywampus podcast. I'm with a good friend of mine, Steve Beecham. He is known here around Alpharetta as the mayor of his town, Redneck Steve, Steve the clothier, Steve the mortgage broker. Steve's got Buzz. Now, what did I miss?
I don't know. That's pretty good. I'll take all of those.
Take all? But the biggest thing is that if, born and raised around here and been here, not my entire life, but all but
most of it.
Yeah, most all of it other than 4 years. So I feel like this is
Home.
It is. Right? I've been here for 44, 45 years, 43 years, something like that. And so just been around. I know you knew my dad, and I met you, I'm pretty sure, I met you through him. How did we meet? You remember?
I don't. I just feel like I've always known you.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. We run around the same circle. So if you got a loan in Alpharetta over the last 20 years, or
maybe I got it.
You maybe got it, but if not, you've known us. So you have a mortgage business here in town. We're in Rotary together, but I know you do a lot of speaking outside, wrote a couple books. What did I miss out?
I mean, I don't know. It's all good, buddy. I mean, I'm just doing my thing like you, right? We're both extremely fortunate in that we've been able to live a life where we've been able to take our own dirt road. Yeah. And it's a different road than most of the people, and not everybody's made out for that, but you and I have figured it out. Oh, yeah. It's great. And we've had ups and downs, but bottom line is, I think for both of us, is our community has supported us
without a doubt.
And that's what we.
Well, I think that I know for me and from what you, those are the things that we're passionate about, and in our community, we both jump in it,
right? Both
feet and get in and pull other people into it. So
we're a lot alike that way.
Yeah. So I appreciate you being here.
I'm glad to be here.
And we try to make sure that we get a variety, not just of stories, but a variety of people. And so just be authentic in yourself today. I promised all the guys that are behind the camera here today that it'll be one for the books that they'll be talking about, without a doubt. But jumping into it, what's those? I know we were talking a little bit before the show you were starting, but from Cattywampus and just awkward, challenges that you went through in your life, what do you want to talk about today?
Well, I think my biggest moment, my biggest down moment was in the crash in 2009. So I have been in 4 or 5 different businesses, and some of those were successful, some weren't, but they weren't, the bottom fell out kind of thing. And then in 2009, we're trucking along and the bottom falls out. And so I went from $4 or $5 million worth of assets to negative money in my checking account in a matter of 12 to 18 months. And you know what I'm talking about.
I don't think the bottom fell out. I think someone cut it out and stole it because you couldn't even find it.
That's right. So for me, it got so bad that I had to sell my dream house. I had to sell my business, my office that my business was in. I had to sell my rental properties, my vacation properties. And it got to the point where I actually moved into my mom's basement. So me and my wife and my 3 kids, I moved back into my brother's old bedroom in my mother's basement. And if it wouldn't have been for that, my mom cooking us food, I don't know how we'd have made it. And I was able to scrape a loan or two. But during that time, also, it gave me a chance to reflect, and I started writing my first book. And I was able to get that book out. I had to borrow $500 from my mom to go buy my first 100 books. And I kind of started trying to hit the road to speak about my way of how I thought I had succeeded, which was, building deeper relationships with people. And so that's what the book was about. It's called Bass Backwards Business. So that allowed me to get out and start doing that. And all of a sudden, my speaking business kind of took off when there wasn't any mortgage business. And I went from being one of the largest mortgage brokers in town to just a one-man operation, and my wife helping me out. And so there were some lessons from that. And I think the first lesson, and I tell this to people all the time, and I call it shuck your shit.
Shuck
your shit.
Shuck your shit.
All right. So you're sitting around there and you're like, if I could just sell maybe this 4-wheeler over here, I can pay this bill, right? But I don't want to sell my motorcycle, or I don't want to sell my beach house, right? And so you'd sell them like one at a time. And then when you go to sell them because you were so desperate, you never got what they were worth, right? And I had been through a couple of ups and downs in the mortgage business. And by that time, I was like, I knew the ship was going down. And I'm like, I'm selling everything. And I did. I sold. Nothing is on the table to keep. I just want to keep my wife and my 3 kids and everything. And what I realized was that the sooner I shucked my shit, the faster I recovered. And that's a lesson that I tell people all the time is like, things aren't good. You know, I'm going to try to hang on to my house, or I got a divorce, or my business sucks. And they keep trying to hang on to everything. I'm like, no, man, just get rid of all of it.
Yeah. I'll never forget. It was like 2000, late 2008, 2000, first of 2009, the development down there that we had on 30A. And we had sold lots in there. I bought all the lots 285. We've been selling for 600, 650, and just flying off the shelf, right? And so we had this big bundle that we were still holding, and someone had offered like 600 or 600, I forget what it was, to just buy out the rest of it. And we're all like, you know, it's not just me. I'm not just one stupid person in the room. There were several of us like, no, man, it's like we're selling 20 or 30 of these a month. Let's just let it roll. And then, you know, bottom done over. And so now you're holding sand. It's not near as much fun to play in the sand.
You can't eat it.
You can't eat it. You can't do anything. You can't even pick it up and carry it with you. It just falls out of your hand. And I remember I was so grateful. I got a phone call. You know, this was like a year into down there. We know it down there. I mean, it was like that market was dead overnight. Like the tide went out and it took everything with it. Here around,
terrible.
It was a slower
draw.
Here, it was overnight done. And I remember a guy calling, and he was willing to pay $50,000 a lot. And I'll never forget. I was like, Dina, I was talking to my wife. And I said, Dina, this guy pays $50,000 a lot. And she's like, what do you think? I said, I think it sucks, but
we're in.
He'll buy 4. That's $200,000. Like it
that we don't have.
We need it. Like it's already spent, but we need it. And that's I've never really thought about it, because in that standpoint, it was like, okay, hey, here's some things that are non-negotiable. Everything else on the table. What do we have to do to navigate through it ethically, honestly, and be standing there to where every banker that I had, other than one relationship, you know, 7 of the 8 relationships, I can walk in the door and still talk with them, because they were in the everybody's like, oh, they're coming after to get me. No, they're trying to survive.
We all were.
They all were. So Shuck your shit.
I'm telling you, dude.
You need to get a hat or a t-shirt for that.
Like, you know, lady called me the other day, I'm getting divorced. We're going to sell I want to keep the house. I'm like, well, what do you have for income? I don't. I'm like, you can't keep the house.
Yeah.
Well, my kids need to stay in the same school. What about your car? Well, I got a Range Rover. Well, who's paying for that? Well, I'm going to have to start paying for it. How much is it? It's $1,200 a month. You can't keep the Range Rover.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and her mind, it's because you get to a level and you don't want to, nobody wants to go down. Right. Mm-hmm. But the faster you go down, the quicker you recover.
Amen.
That's a big lesson.
We both lost a lot of friends and people through there to where their identity was wrapped up in what they had and who they were. And it's like, man, I understand there is mental and emotional anguish. I felt it. 8 years, 3 months, 23 days. Okay. Like, I know, I can tell you, like I was in it right there with you. Right. And it's like, man, you took your life because of that, of that.
Yeah.
You know, there's probably I don't want to diminish that, but man, that's to fight through it and come out the other side is there. So what else did you learn through that other than shuck your shit? What do you think you learned?
Well, I think I wrote a book. My 3rd book was called The Tapes We Play in Our Head. And so during that, you know, you have all these things that are going on in your head. And so the more fear you have, the more conversation you're having, and the more
conversation you're having with yourself,
and the more of it's bouncing off of different things. It's not just one. I think we normally all carry some at a given time. We have this one thing that's bothering us this day or this week, But when you got a lot of turmoil going on, you got a lot of different conversations going. You know, it's like you're thinking about the car being repossessed or the house being repossessed or, oh my God, that guy's out there in the driveway. Who is that guy? Well, he's an appraiser.
Don't answer the door.
Being
Don't
paid
answer.
to take a picture of your house
Yeah.
to give it to the lender because you're behind on your mortgage payment, right? You know, and your mom and your wife's like, who's that in our driveway? Well, I don't know, honey, but he'll go away, right?
Yeah.
So you have all those different things. So when I was going through that process, so I was fortunate. My dad's a shrink and my brother's a psychologist. And so my whole life we've sat around conversations or heard conversations about people that are in turmoil or confusion or anxiety or depression. And I've heard those conversations from their side.
Yep.
Right. And one of the favorite ones was my dad would always say, he would say, you know what? You ain't gonna make it. And you could hear him on the phone like, what do you mean? He goes, you know, everybody else that was depressed or everybody else that got divorced or everybody else that lost their job, you know, they're all dead. They just didn't make it. Nobody makes it. And it makes you start and go, what is he talking about? You know, and he's like, you're thinking like it's a death when it's not. It's just a piece of what's going on in life, right? It's part of the drive. So I came up with these three things that I think about when I have negative conversation. So the first one is I said, you know what, when I have this negative conversation, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around to that negative conversation. I'm going to fight it back. So I learned that because the whole time from the time when I first saw my wife walk on college campus and I decided she was the girl I was going to marry and she had no idea who the hell I was. Yeah. It took me 9 years or so to marry her, right? And I said, you gotta have this internal conversation that's appropriate and that brings you forward and is positive. And so I kept thinking to myself, yeah, I'm going to meet this girl. Where's this going to happen? And so when I'm having a negative thing, a negative thought, I start thinking about what happens if I have an argument with that thought, because when I was chasing my wife, I was afraid to argue with her because I didn't want her upset with me. As we've moved along in our relationship, I've gotten to feel better about the relationship. And so now she'll say something. I go, no, we're not. Because I don't care now. I'm like, I feel I've grown up enough to where I feel comfortable about that relationship. Before, I would always avoid arguments. And so lately, in the last 5 or 6 or 10 years, I've learned to argue more with her, and I get better at it every time. Is she still out arguing?
I'm going to ask her next time I see her in town.
Yeah. So she doesn't even know that's going on in my mind.
Yeah.
But then I said, what happens if I fight back this negative conversation? What happens? I'm having a negative conversation. What happens if I say, no, you're not going to talk to me like that? No, it's not going to be that way. No, I'm not going to put up with that. You're not going to talk to me like that. And so I kind of give it a name. Like, let's say, no, devil, you're not going to talk to me like that. And I start having this fight. It's in my mind, it's a fight. It's an argument, like a knockdown, drag out you might have with a business partner or your spouse. So that's one. That helps me a lot. That's the first thing I normally do. And then the second thing I'll do is I'll do a thing where I call it sort of you go, so like do this. So take your hand and do like hook 'em horns. Do like a hook 'em horns. Okay.
I may do this. I can't do it. This hand's a little messed
do
up.
hook 'em horns.
All right, I got it.
Okay, so that's the devil talking to you. Okay, then do like this. So that's the devil. Devil's over here talking to you.
Yeah.
But you always have the option to bring an angel in. So if you do this, that's like the halo and the wings of an angel. And so I said, if the devil's talking to me, why can't I bring this angel into the conversation? Or I got this person riding on my shoulder that's this little black hat. It's like the devil with a black hat. And I got this cowboy over here with a white hat. He's the good guy. Why can't I have this angel person help me have this conversation with this negative thought? And so I'll start having a negative thought and I'll start saying to myself, hey, okay, you're saying that about me, but you know what? That's not really the case, I'll have this. It's like my grandmother would be there and she would say, oh man, you're the cutest little, sweetest, nicest little boy. You've always, been a good kid or blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you can't give me this negative thought and make me feel bad about myself. And like my grandmother's over there saying, you know, you're a good guy. So how can you bring in positive thought to counteract the negative thought? And then the third thing is bring in an expert. And so it's a similar sort of theory, but what I do is I say, okay, I'm having this negative thought, and then I go, okay, who's an expert at this? It might be Oprah. It might be Tony Robbins. It might be my pastor. And I go to and I say, hey, get in on this conversation with me. And so then this person is doing similar thing and saying, hey, you know, leave Steve alone. He's a good guy. He's trying to do the best he can. He's trying to, you know, Steve, don't let that person talk to you about that. So it makes me feel better because this person is kind of superior to me. This person is more knowledgeable than me.
Person you're looking towards.
Look, it's a mentor, somebody I'm looking at, helping me fight off that negative conversation. And that's the 3 ways that I do it. And I do that on a daily, hour by hour basis. And I know I haven't had the struggles. I don't feel like I've had the struggles that you've had, especially with your past. I don't know how you guys do it. I mean, it's serious mental strength.
Well, it's that willingness to surrender daily, to know that I can't, he can, right? I made a post the other day.
That's like bringing an angel in.
Exactly. It's like, I can't do this without you, God. I cannot physically do this. So at least if I surrender there, now that's not just sit and wait for God to do it. I got to act. So now what is my headspace? Who are my people? What's my tribe? Who am I going around? But I posted something a couple weeks ago on Facebook or Instagram. I was sitting there and I was like, man, the things that I try to control are the things that end up controlling me. Like if I'm really trying to control the way something's going to go out, then that's all my focus and energy is on controlling that deal. Well, in a sense, that's the little black hat sitting there. It's done it sucked you in to one view and one way. And it's like all my focus is on that rather than just kind of hands open and being proactive and going through. But, you know, whether it's recovery or business or relationships, we are our biggest either advocate or it's going to break us down.
We
and
all
kill us.
think that we're the only one having that conversation or having that problem.
And that's the beautiful part about having folks. And it's the main reason that we kind of started doing the show is that everybody's cattywampus and jacked up, right? Everybody needs to shuck their shit. It may look different. It may be so you may be selling this or needing to
get
like
that,
don't you? I love it. It's like we
need a t-shirt.
We do need a t-shirt. If you're watching, you can always get a t-shirt. We need to shuck your shit.
I'm gonna tell you another one I learned. So I was reading this thing from Napoleon Hill, and Napoleon Hill was saying, fear is just not knowing the answer to a question. And the more I think about that, and the more I live with that for the last 20 years, when you get anxious or you get worried about something, it's because you don't know what's about to happen. And right now with the world like the way it is, there's a lot of fear out there.
I would agree.
But the way you solve that is you got to like the question might be, I don't know where it's going. I actually did my little beach walk on that morning. Okay, I don't know where the economy's going. I don't know where interest rates are going. I don't know where real estate going. That's my world. Who might know? Whose stuff can I read? Who can I make a phone call? And I got these 5 or 6 guys, and they don't even know they're my 5 or 6 guys. Yeah. But they're all of you know. And I'll call them. I'm like, hey man, what are you thinking? And they're all older than me, and they're all like, oh man, the world's fixing to fall in. I'm buying Bitcoin, and they all got their way of viewing the world. Yeah. But after I talk to all 5 of them, then it's like the fear goes away, and the answer is we really don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah.
And the consensus between these 5 is at X. And so I'll take that average, and that's the way I'm going to view it going forward. That's what I think is going to happen. And that's generally what happens.
Well, and that's the biggest thing is if we're willing to ask someone that we respect and value into our world to help us make a decision and talk through it and think through it, there's freedom in that because you've just released that fear of like, hey, I don't know this. I'm trying to figure this out.
And what you find out, they don't know either.
No, we don't. Everybody cattywampus at some point in time. So what do you think? I call them my double Ds, right? What are Steve Beecham's double Ds, those daily disciplines, a couple of things that you do daily to keep that negative talk and just kind of stay in the lane of where you're of service and of value and heading the direction you want to go?
Well, I don't know that I have it in that same respect. I've got you know, I call it creating habits, and you create one habit and then it allows you to create another habit. I do that with my business from a marketing standpoint. I create a habit of maybe putting out a video every day. Then I create a habit of maybe reading a business book a week. And once I start that habit, then it's a habit, and then I don't break it. And I keep adding habits. But
you got your beach walks that you're doing.
yeah, I've got this book I just finished, so I'm doing some Facebook Live, some Instagram Live. I'm sitting down doing like what you're doing. I was doing a podcast, but I've kind of converted that to where I'm just talking about a chapter in the book, and then I'm putting that out on YouTube and social media. So, and then all week, what I'm doing is I sort of have a theme for the week, which is sort of the chapter. And this book's got like 70 chapters. It's just little marketing ideas. So, you know, like this week, it's about how joining community organizations can grow your business. You know, and so, you know, join Rotaries and chambers and churches and all that stuff, right? You meet more people. But I'm just trying to think. I would say, you know, I kind of have more of a habit of trying to be purposeful every day. So my purpose is to help other people get from where they are to where they want to go. Yeah. And so I found that out during the crash in 2009. Why am I here? Why am I doing this? Mortgage business is not fun because there's no business, right? Do I want to go do something else? And I tried to find some other stuff and couldn't make it happen. And then I did the book thing, and then it kind of got me thinking about my purpose. And I read some stuff on that. And so I got real purposeful, and I said, okay, that's the conversation I'm having with myself in the most of the day is who am I helping get from where they are to where they want to go? So now I didn't like the mortgage business, so I said, okay, well, let me rethink about the mortgage business through my purpose. And I go, oh, somebody comes in here and says, I'm living here and I want to move here. So I'm helping you get from here to here. Now the mortgage business is purposeful. So the work is just the widget that allows you to express your purpose. And so now I'm with people trying to get them to think about what is your purpose? And to me, that's different than your passion.
Yep.
Are you living a purposeful life? And so what I do is I go out and try to help as many people get where they're going to go. And I know that by doing that over the last 30 years, that some of those people will reciprocate and help me get to where I want to go.
Yeah,
So
well,
that's kind of
as well. Zig Ziglar, I think it's when it said, or Maxwell.
Yeah, helping enough people get what they want to help you get what you want.
Was it Zig Ziglar or Maxwell?
I think it's Zig.
I think it is. I think it is Zig Ziglar.
Yeah,
is on that, and that's a true statement. But it's like the biggest thing. If we focus on what someone else needs, we tend to stay more grateful and full of gratitude because we're not focused on what we don't have or what we think we should have or where we should be or how big or how small or how much. It's like, oh man, I'm helping this person get what they need or helping them through a problem or helping them to stay, focused on what it is. And it makes a big difference in how we navigate through it. Yeah. So if someone's watching this and they think it's like, okay, well, here's two guys that may not talk like me. They live all those things. Like how would you describe your life now from a standpoint? If I focus on, I want to live an epic life, right? And I'm going to do whatever I can daily to do in my style of epic.
It's one of my favorite words, epic.
Oh, is it? And I think to have an epic life, if you want to experience an epic life, you have to do epic shit, right? You can't sit around and be like, oh, this is what I'm going to do one day. It's like, no, go do it. Don't wait, go do it. So how would you describe today, post everything that you came through, how you're living it now? Like, how would you describe life today?
I think that I made the decision that you have to you first have to live with yourself, right? Yep. I got to wake up myself. I got to do what I got to do. My wife might leave me. My kids might die. My mom and dad might leave me. Ultimately, I got to take care of Steve. It's kind of like I got to get my own oxygen before I go give everybody else oxygen. So I got to keep Steve happy. I guess Steve's got to do what he's got to do. Yep. And when I get something on my mind, I don't wait around anymore to find out if other people like it or want to do it. I just go do it.
Right.
I'm just going to make it happen. I think it's worthy and I think it's good and I'm going to go do it. And I'm not going to wait to see if everybody else goes, that's a great idea, Steve. Because the way I'm looking at it is I'm 63. I feel like
you're old. I didn't realize you're that old.
Yeah,
shit.
So I got
like that. You might be the oldest person we had on the show.
Well, dang.
Oh, I gotta get somebody old in here now so I can make you feel young.
They ain't got no hair. Well, you don't either.
I don't either. I just lost
ain't
it
had
20
any
years. Yeah.
But I think you just, like I get an idea, like, I remember when we were riding our dirt bikes and we were riding, I'm like, man, I hate to ride the same trail. I want each 5 feet to be a different view. How could I do that? Why don't we ride dirt bikes across the United States? And I told a couple guys, they're like, you're crazy, man. You ain't do that. And then one of the guys calls me a week later when we get back from Colorado, and he's like, dude, I think we can do this. We can do dirt roads all the way across the United States. Epic, one of the most epic journeys of my life.
But you did it from Mexico to Canada and
The
California.
continental divide, and then we went from Charleston, South Carolina to Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
On dirt.
Yeah.
As much as we could. Anyway, and then they're like, then what we're gonna do next, Beach? I'm like, let's go to the Arctic Circle, and then we realized that was 3 times as far as what we just did. We're like, well, we might need to take our bikes up there. But anyway, like this concert thing that I started doing, I'm like, man, we need music downtown. Mary and I were sitting downtown 4 years ago. We'd had dinner at 9 o'clock. We're sitting on one of the park benches, and the town is dead. It's rolling up. And I'm like, what can we do? I said, why don't we just start having concerts? And then everybody told me no. I said, I'm going to figure this out. And we started doing it. Now it's a great thing. It brings the community together. I don't make any money on it. It costs me money, but I've gotten the community involved, and it's progressing. And now I've got a new twist I'm working on for that I hope to put together for this next year. So I didn't wait on somebody. I just said, I'm going to figure it out. Right.
Yeah. Well, it's like a lot of people would look like what we experienced is failure, but it wasn't failure, because if you weren't in the game and you weren't playing at the level that we were playing,
Yeah.
you couldn't have lost. There's
Yeah.
plenty of people that didn't lose in that.
Right.
But I look at it as they failed. Yeah, because if you look during that time period.
Well, I didn't during that time period. But
During that time period, I'm like, dude, this sucks.
But it's interesting, right? Of all the people we know that have failed and then repeated, but some people just continue to fail and repeat. They don't really learn the lesson. It's tough to, because I know I'm not as aggressive as I was then. I know I don't have as many years to recover. I remember going to the bank when they were about to take one of my properties, and the guy says, we got 3 people that we're going to take care of, and you're one of them. And I said, who are the other 2? And he said, they're 2 80-year-old guys, and they'll never have time to recover. And you told us the truth the whole time. You begged us to take this thing a year ago, and we didn't.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about that. I'm kind of getting there. I'm 63. I don't have a whole lot of time to recover, right? So I got to be a little more conservative than I was before.
Well, it's the interesting thing is what I learned through 08, 09, up through the 8 years that followed 08, right? When the last stuff that we've all went through, it wasn't that I was smart and saw something coming, right? It wasn't that I was planning for it and hoping it on anybody. I was focused on just living right.
You've learned not to blame yourself.
Yeah. And so there were simple disciplines that we chose to put in place. And when doing that, when others were stressed and panicked, we're like, oh, okay, hey, it's going to be a little different, but it didn't disrupt us like it did the last time. And I'm not saying that I'm smart on that. It was that
you learned.
I learned it. And so what we did is say, okay, we're going to pull back and make some changes so that we're not as dependent upon everybody else to make something. What do we need, and how can you be diversified but still be in your interest and your expertise, but be more diverse so that it's not all one industry or one type of hospitality. And that's hard because you don't get the, oh, hey, look at me. It's like you just kind of just
but you grow out of that a little bit too.
Oh yeah. I'm pretty comfortable. I'm just the old redneck trying to figure out how to make a living and quit, and it's like, I'm good with it. And I get JJ and Rotary always calls me out. She says, she goes, that's false humility. I said, false humility? What the heck are you talking about? She goes, you play the part that you don't know anything and can't do anything so that no one expects anything from you. And I was like, well, not necessarily. And she goes, well, no, there's some false humility in that. And I'm like, so every time if I have negative self-talk and someone catches me on here with it, they have to catch me on air saying it. And then she sends them a thing of brookies that I just ship to them. So but it's a change of mindset. But I'm really happy. I feel really free. There's things I could be doing that I'm not, but yet there's a lot that I'm doing that I wouldn't normally have been able to, right? And that's where, as I watch you from a distance, just seeing the life that you're living and the things that you're investing in and the help you're giving people, you're free. You're doing and living the life is the way that you want to, and living an epic life and helping other people come alongside you, man. It's pretty awesome. So do me a favor. Like if you look just directly into this camera and when you look just directly into this camera, you're talking specifically to the dude, right? Not a lady. You're talking to yourself, 2008, 2009, sitting right there. That guy that's sitting in that and thinks there's no way in hell that I can come through this. Like, what would you tell that person?
It's gonna be fine. That's really it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I told you earlier. It's you're not the only one that's been through that. You're not the first one that's been through it. Everybody else who went through it died. No, they didn't. You're going to be fine. One of the things that my dad taught me was they call it a back out theory. Back out theory is like he's got somebody there and he's counseling with them and they're worried about their daughters smoking dope. And he goes, well, what happens? What's so bad about smoking dope? Well, then they might start doing acid. Okay, then what's so bad about that? Then they might start doing crack cocaine. Okay, then what happens? Then she turns into a prostitute because she needs the money because she's a drug addict. Okay, then what happens? Blah, blah, blah. And she says, okay, she ends up getting killed or she dies. And he goes, okay, then what happens? Well, I guess I got to go to a funeral. Okay, then what happens? Well, I guess then I got to start figuring out how to live without her. And he goes, there you go. If you back it all the way down to the worst case scenario, then it kind of can free you of it and you can go. So if you've got somebody, like I've had that's struggling and was where you were at some time. I had 3 or 4 of my buddies and I can't remember if I asked you about it. They're like, dude, you got to wash your hands of that. They got to go figure it out on their own. And that's kind of what I had to do in that crash. I had to figure it out on my own. I had to grow up, put on my big boy pants. I had to take care of my family. I had to figure it out. And I just kept thinking about, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to come back. And so that's that. I'm just born with some good DNA to talk differently, I guess, than some people. And you just got to do that. You just got to know that you have the opportunity to create the life that you want. And it's not like that. And you can do that. And I remember when I was younger, I was at deer camp. One of my favorite guys that I was at deer camp with, you would know this guy, and we were talking about something business. And I said, nah, that's not what it is. He said, well, let me tell you a story. He said, it's not that us older guys are any smarter than you younger guys. We just been there more times.
That's the truth.
And I have thought about that saying my whole life because that's why I talk to these mentors. Hey, they just been through more of these disasters or more of these successes than I have, right? Yeah. And that's what I tell the young guys. Hey, don't sweat it, man. It's all about seasons, right? I was talking to a guy today. He's 35 years old. He's like, man, I need to be who I'm going to be, right? Yeah. I've been trying to do this, and now I feel like I got to get here. And I'm like, that's the first step, right?
Yeah. Without a doubt.
And then you'll get along. Then you get to where I'm at, and you're like, you start to step down.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, I've done what I'm going to do, and now I need to enjoy it. I only got, and I can tell my guys I ride motorcycles with, we only got about 10 more years we can jump out of airplanes and go fast on motorcycles. And after that, we're riding three-wheelers.
Gonna get you a scooter, be around on a little three-wheeler.
Got to make, whenever something epic shows up and I'm interested, I'm going. But I don't feel the need to make it epic. That's an interesting thing. If I've got an interest in it, I just feel that I know that I care enough that I can make it happen.
Then that's the life you want to live.
Yeah.
Well, man, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate all you do for this community and Glowy. Just, internationally and everything that you're involved in, and that we get to partner in. I'm grateful for you.
Yeah.
Alpharetta's better because of you. And if you're watching today, our challenge is go shuck some shit that you got. Go ahead and get rid of it now. All of it. Get rid of it. But at the same point in time, if you want to know more about Steve, Follow him on Instagram, follow him on Facebook. We'll have his links in our description of this video, and on the description on Spotify, wherever you're listening or watching. And so they can get a hold of you.
Neither one of us are hard to find.
No, it's especially this time of year, it's going to be duck camp or deer camp. But thank you for watching this week. Have a great week. We'll see you next week with another great episode.